I used to be the manager of a medium-sized thrift store, 12,000 square feet, or 1,100 square meters, in a largish city in the Midwestern U.S. We priced things with a different color tag every week. We had 5 colors, so this week the color that we priced with 3 weeks ago is half off. The color we priced 4 weeks ago was being pulled off of the hangers, shelves and being ragged out, literally sold by the pound as rags, so that next week when that color came up again it was all fresh stock. I had about 10 employees. 2 running out clothing, 2 on register, keeping things straightened, 1 putting out brick, aka bric-a-brac. Anything that isn't clothes or shoes, my assistant manager who dealt with furniture and big stuff when we were both in the store, and 4 others who were in the back processing the clothing, sorting, hanging, pricing, prepping the racks for the runners. We were open Monday through Saturday, so everyone had at least one other day off during the week, and most of my employees were part-timers anyway. We were literally graded by how much merchandise we put out. My runners counted every rack of clothes and wrote its number down before they took the rack out. I would get a report every week saying how many pieces we sold, how many we put out. We were expected to push a certain number of items, greater than 5,000 pieces of clothing, per day, keep the average item price around $1, usually a little less, and our average total sale around $11. I did the clothing pricing myself, half in, half out of the stock room so I could see the main sales floor. My crew put blank tags on the clothing and I wrote the price in with a black Sharpie. We were very high-tech. We would have half-price sales on holidays, where everything was half off, no matter what color the tag was. I had a regular customer come up to me on one of those days and tell me that she heard we went through the store beforehand and marked all of the items up so they weren't really on sale, and she was really mad at us. I looked at her with very tired eyes and said, "Ma'am, we do not have time to go through the store and reprice things." She gave me a startled look and quickly left. And #X200B /tilde edited Q's I'm too long-winded. Note, TL, doctor at bottom, okay, so I work as a cashier for a well-known chain. This story just recently happened. Just for reference, me Karen, customer CW, coworker. So, I'm preparing to close down the self-checkout where I'm stationed at BC. The store is closing. While I am doing so, Karen comes and starts her order. This is fine, as there's still time left. Anyways, she calls me over to do an ID check for alcohol that she's buying. At our store, for alcohol and tobacco purchases, we have to check everyone's ID per company policy and it has to be a legal form of a government-issued ID. I ask to see her ID. She pulls out her phone and shows me a picture of her ID. Of course, this is not acceptable as we have to have the physical ID to check. So I tell Karen that I cannot accept her ID photo. Karen begins to get upset with me asking why if it's her ID. I attempted to explain to her that it is illegal for me to accept her ID if it's not her physical ID. Of course, she still proceeds to argue with me about it, stating that it's her ID and that I'm just making things more difficult than it is. I once again explained that I'm simply following state law and company policy and that I could risk losing my job if I violated them by proceeding with the alcohol purchase. I then take her alcohol as she's talking on the phone with someone else. As she does, she walked over to CW and attempted to explain to her the situation to try to get CW to side with her. I once again explained to Karen in front of CW that it is illegal for us to use her ID on her phone for alcohol purchases, and CW backed me up on it. She walks back to her SEO register in a huff. Moments later, Karen calls me back over and asks me to bring the alcohol I took from her. I oblige, but only to see what she was trying to pull. I noticed another customer standing next to her and I thought, please tell me she's not trying to use another person's ID to get alcohol. Sure enough, that's exactly what Karen was trying to do, and I had to shut that down as well because it is also illegal and against policy to use someone else's ID to purchase your alcohol or tobacco. This of course upsets Karen even further, and she tells me that I'm not going to lose my job because it's not illegal if she's over the age of 21. I explained to her that it doesn't matter how old you are, I still need a valid ID. She finally accepts defeat, although she was talking crap about me behind my back on the phone, I'm sure, and leaves the store with the rest of her purchase. I feel bad for her. But I cannot and will not risk my job just so a customer can get their $30 bottle of alcohol. TL, Doctor, Karen tries to show her ID on phone for alcohol. I decline the sale. She then tries to argue with me and circumvent the rules. I shut her down. Edit, forgot to mention that I'm on mobile, so if format looks weird, I apologize. Second edit, I just woke up and saw this got some attention. Cool. Thanks everyone for the support. Also, to answer some PPL's questions about virtual apps for IDs, I live in Ohio, and that hasn't rolled out yet here, but if it did, it might affect policy at my company. I'd been working at a petrol station for roughly 3 months. It's a part-time job around university, but as a summer I could work extra hours, so I was pretty proud that after just 3 months I was trained up to work the closing shifts by myself. This isn't a problem. I love the responsibility and I'm good at what I do. However, I'd still never had to handle a customer threatening to report me whilst I was on my own. The petrol station closes at 11 p.m. and I'm scheduled to finish at 11:15 p.m. as most of the work can be done while still serving customers. At 11 p.m. I'd locked up everything except the one pump that was pay at the pump. You can choose to use your card there or to pay at the kiosk, and I went in the back to do the last paperwork and lock the safe up. I came out of the back at about 11:10 p.m. and saw a middle-aged man getting irate at the one pump that didn't have a padlock hanging from the handle. I still don't know how he didn't notice. So, I unlocked the shop door and went out and very politely informed him that we closed at 11 p.m. and I couldn't serve him and now needed to lock the pump. He huffed and I was expecting to hear something about how the pump was unlocked so he should be able to use it. But no, his first comment was, "But the lights inside the shop are on." This is a supermarket petrol station that sits apart from the main superstore. The main store closes at 10 p.m. but the main electrics are all linked, so as there's a night shift working in the main store the lights in both places are on. Not environmentally friendly but just how it works. I tried to politely explain that the store was closed and it was only workers still walking around in there, but he cut me off. "No. The lights in the petrol station are still on. That's misleading. It made me think you were open. They should be off." I looked back at the kiosk that I just walked out of and managed to stutter. "Well, yes, because I'm still in there to lock up." He immediately started to lecture me that it was illegal to mislead customers like that and couldn't seem to understand that the lights had to be on so that the staff could finish their work. He was insistent that he was going to file a complaint with the highest authority that he could find. I don't know if he ever did, but I can imagine he would have been laughed out of the store for suggesting we should have to work in the dark. I remembered this little funny story. Where I used to work, we had a new worker start. She was good. It was her first job, but she pretty much dove head first into any task that was asked of her. One day, she was up at cash. The store just closed, and I was doing the rounds to make sure the lights were off and no one was left inside while she was counting the money at the register. The phone then rings, and she asks me if we should pick it up. I had my head turned away for the moment, checking another phone on the caller ID to see if possibly it was the boss phoning. I didn't recognize the number, so I told her no. The store is closed and all the computers are off. I then hear a click, and look back, to see my coworker with her hand on the phone. I asked her if she picked up the receiver then put it back. She said yeah. I began laughing, saying you just hung up on whoever was calling. She was nervously laughing, saying she didn't know why she picked it up after I told her not to. I told her not to worry, to take her cash up, and if the phone rings again, I'll answer just to make it up to whoever was calling. The phone then rings with the same number, and I answer. I wish I didn't because the other end was a customer who is a pain, and neglectful. Just as an example, he has a 2-year-old kid he lets run around the store parking lot while he shopped. That's another story though. He wanted me to give him the phone number of a coworker who does handyman work on the side. I just told him I can't give him the number and he'll have to talk with a worker when he isn't next. This literally happened an hour ago. I work at a popular grocery chain in Illinois as a courtesy clerk. Our job is to bag and push carts and return hand baskets along with many other miscellaneous activities. I was just vibing in the parking lot at 9 p.m. when this guy rolls up blaring Snoop Dogg at max volume in a scooter with a speaking system and strips of neon blue lights. I'm not kidding at all, this is what it looked like, so I took notice of him immediately because I was pretty curious and a bit annoyed by the music. Yeah, so this dude was blasting at max volume, bass and everything, and hurting my ears, mind you. He went inside and then it stopped and I'm like, thank God, to myself. I guess he heard me say that, and since I was going inside to get a drink of water he confronted me saying, I heard you say thank God when the music turned off and you wanna get fired? Which I then noticed he smelled like alcohol. Then, he was saying some shit about how I should be a man and do something, and I said back to him, hey, at least I'm not the drunk riding a scooter with neon lights blasting rap music. He also said he knew my name and my employee ID number. He knew my first name, which almost scared me, but I asked him what's my ID number and he had no response and tried to change the topic by saying he makes money to try and make me feel bad about my job. Which is weird cause he was returning a Redbox DVD, which is typically not favorited by the wealthy. I was rather tempted to smack the FCK out of him, but I instead went straight to my manager and she said she would inform the higher-ups and if he came back she will call the police, and also called him a Redditor. TDLR. Some jerk off on a ridiculous-looking scooter tried to piss me off but failed. Obligatory. This didn't happen to me, but I overheard the whole thing. A customer walked up to the counter yesterday and said that his travel cup that he bought had a small leak on the rim when he drank from it and he wanted to exchange it. My manager overheard and asked how he could help as he had the most knowledge on that particular product. Side note, I later learned that when the customer showed my co-workers the leak he tilted the cup almost completely upside down and the cup still had coffee in it from that morning. The customer explained that his cup leaked and he wanted a new one, but he wanted us to test the new one in store to make sure it didn't leak. My manager then calmly explained to him that unfortunately that particular cup was not actually leak-proof. If he wanted to exchange it for the same model we could not guarantee that the next one would not leak either. However, he would be happy to test it for him to see for sure. The customer then got aggressive and started almost yelling at my manager that his friend has the same cup, his doesn't leak, and his friend said that the cup leaking is a defect, so he either wants an exchange for a cup that doesn't leak or his money back. My manager again calmly explains that the leak is not a defect, since the cup is not leak-proof, but he would still be happy to exchange or refund the cup. He just wants the customer to be aware that if he gets the same one it may leak on him again. They have this back and forth for about 5 minutes with my manager calmly explaining that the cup isn't leak-proof and all the solutions he can provide, and the customer yelling that the leak is a defect because his friend said so. My manager eventually gets the customer to calm down and he shows him the other travel cups we have that are made to be leak-proof, but the customer doesn't want any of them because they don't have a handle. Eventually the customer just exchanges his cup for the same model, hoping that this next one doesn't leak. We did end up testing the new one for him and it did the same thing his current one does because the cup is not made to be leak-proof. We explained this to him and he took it anyway, all the while still saying that the leak is a defect because his friend told him so. My manager ended the conversation by giving the customer tips on how to take the cup apart when cleaning it to hopefully get out the excess liquid getting trapped in the lid, which might be contributing to the leak. The customer said that he wasn't going to put that much effort into cleaning his cup every time he used it and that he was just going to hope it didn't leak because his friend said the leak was a defect. This may seem tame compared to some of the stories on here, but the way the customer went from understanding to blind rage was astounding. Plus his refusal to understand that we were trying our best to solve his problem, just that the best solution wasn't what he originally wanted, was just astounding to listen to. Update: the customer came back and yesterday while I was off and started complaining that he couldn't get the cup back together when he took it apart to clean it because he wasn't paying attention when my manager explained it to him. When my coworker tried to show him how to put it together he just complained more that my coworker was doing it wrong and that his way different than how the instructions said to do it. My manager ended up showing him how to put it back together. Shocker, in the same way my coworker was trying to show him.